do that. And here we come with the music.
The Broken Brain.
You can feel free to dance if you feel that it's appropriate. Then it starts to fade a little, then it starts to fade a little more till it fades away and you can't hear it anymore. Hey, Brainiacs, welcome to the Broken Brain. This is one of our simulcasts. We're uploading the audio to iTunes and a special secret preview for those of you that are watching the YouTube channel, because this is going to be up before the audio, so you're going to want to watch both. You can play them both side by side. I hear if you mute the video and you play the audio, that crazy things will happen. It's even better if you play Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon album while you're doing that. I'm, of course, your host and psychotherapist for the program, Dwight Hurst. Thanks so much for being here, everyone. This is our, we do at least one show a month about addiction, and that's what we're going to be talking about, addiction in the holidays and how to stay sober. Hopefully, I think that's the point of what we're going to be talking about. I'm really, really, really excited. Our guest today is Shira Goldberg from the Addiciton Show on YouTube. Addiciton Show fame, I think, is how it was is on your business card.
Addiciton Show fame. I'll take it.
Tell us all about you and yourself. Everything. We want to know it all.
All right. So what am I doing lately? Well, I am a recovery/sober coach. I have a certification to call myself a master coach, which is so fun. I'm also a graduate student at the University of San Francisco. So a shout out to the Dons. You only know who Dons are if you attend that school. I'm getting a dual licensure. So I'm working toward licensing in marriage and family therapy, and also as a professional clinical counselor. And if that wasn't enough fun, I am finishing my last class so I can get certification as a drug and alcohol counselor in the state of California. So there you go.
What is it about people in our profession, by the way? We can never just stop at one thing. We've got to do maybe a key thing. I don't know.
I don't know. It seems to be a common theme among the people in my cohort. We always have many plates of spinning, that's for sure.
Tell a little bit about your show. I came across your show a little while ago on the YouTube, the Addiciton Show, and I was super impressed. And we've been trying to make this happen for a little while, back and forth between each other, both being busy and me not knowing how to tell time. There's been all sorts of obstacles. But yeah, talk a little bit about your show.
Okay, well, I think it's been around for almost 3 years now, although I haven't really been too involved with it the past, I'd say, 6 months, just because my schedule is so incredible and my grades are like the equivalent to someone who's training for the Olympics. So I've really kind of just trimmed the fat and just focused on what I can do successfully. And the wonderful thing about the Addiciton Show is it's on YouTube. So I have many, many, many shows, probably 2.5 years worth of shows that cover all kinds of wonderful subject matter, like what's addiction. I talk to neuroscientists, some movie stars, some parents. It's just, the one great aspect about the show is it's a conversation. So even though we all have our own biases, I really try to just promote resources that might not otherwise get the notoriety that they so deserve, and to let people know that if something doesn't work for you, try something else.
That's really a great thing that I've learned, just not only in my career, but in doing the podcast and talking to people, especially in the area of addiction, because I think a lot of people who haven't really gotten into that either they have loved ones maybe who need treatment, or they've never been to treatment themselves, or maybe they just have never had an addiction problem. They have one specific idea of what treatment looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Either have the traditional psychoanalysis idea of someone just laying on a couch, or they have like the 12-step program only, which is a big part of addiction recovery for a lot of people. But
Mm-hmm.
so many different things, different components. And even if you're doing those things that people do think of, there's so much more to it. And so that's one of the things I think is really helpful about this medium of YouTube or podcasting, to be able to put out this information.
And that's kind of where my niche has been, because I was looking for resources years ago for myself, and I couldn't really identify with just AA. It seemed like it worked for some people, but I'm not some people. I'm me, trying to find my own way through, and navigating with one instrument is not going to lead to success. So I had two options at that point. Either something was terribly wrong with me and there was no hope, or there's got to be some other resource that I could tap into and connect with. And for me, that actually was cognitive behavioral therapy. So by being able to just be mindful about my perceptions that are based on my thoughts, of course they're going to change my actions. So that really resonated with me, and I thought that was just the coolest thing going on. So I was like, wow, what is this? And that's what really was the seed that planted the interest for me, to realize that if there's that option available that resonated with me, what else is out there? So I think there's a lot of people that share that sentiment, that just because something doesn't work for you doesn't mean there's nothing that does, or you're going to be pigeonholed into a life of misery. And so I give people like the hope and resources. So it's like a la carte recovery. It's your own individualized recovery, so you pick what works for you. And that's how you own your own recovery. So I'm a real advocate of empowering yourself. So that's actually one of the taglines for Life Ring, which is a secular organization. It's more like a process group, and it's pretty common here in the North Bay Area where I live, and all over the Bay Area. But unfortunately, it's not as prevalent as the AA 12-step model, and that's because everyone keeps promoting the 12-step model. So I'm here to promote alternatives, and anyone can get involved with these. Another one that I really loved, I became a Smart Recovery Facilitator. I even have a certificate. I'm very proud of it. I don't know where it is, but that is totally based on cognitive behavioral therapy. So, that was a way I could extend my appreciation for what worked for me, really kind of solidified cognitive restructuring and how cognitive distortions are ruling my life, and how I can turn that around. And it really became my journey of just seeing what was available, what was out there, and what resonated with me.
You really talk about something that listeners of this show will be pretty familiar with hearing me say, which is an individualized approach instead of just a programmatic approach. And I think because substance abuse lends itself to large-scale misbehaviors of lots of people, and because for a long time the medical community had kind of left a lot of the dealing with those things up to law enforcement until they knew what to do and until the therapy caught up with it. You have a lot of programmatic approaches that are harder to individualize. And so I like the new modern approach that people are using, whether 12 steps part of it or CBT, or as is most common, I see both. A lot of people utilize both of those. And really just finding what works for the person in an individualized way, which when you think about it, any other form of treatment, particularly counseling and mental health treatment, is individualized. Absolutely.
And also, if you have a good doctor, they will give you options. They don't just talk about bloodletting. That's the way to go, and that's the only way. So it's really important just to be aware that there are options out there. So you can find what would work best for you. I think I lost you for a second, so I'll just keep talking. You'll pop back up. This is the wonderful happenings on the Google Hangouts. Oh, there you are.
No, we're good. We had a little digitalization Tron voice going on there for just a second, but we caught up to it. Well, it's the holidays. Happy holidays, everybody out there, and
happy holidays. Happy holidays.
And as we know, with addiction, there's never a better reason to use a drug or to use alcohol or use any substance at all than to celebrate, except for to console yourself. And the holidays offer both, whether you're trying to use in a conciliatory way or whether you're trying to use in a celebratory way. The holidays will give you lots of opportunities for both, both kinds of intoxication. Yeah. Let's dive into some of the things that we need to keep in mind to be sober in the holidays.
Okay, well, happy holidays first and foremost, whatever you're celebrating. I personally celebrate Hanukkah, so there's more latkes involved than liquor, so it's easier for me, knock on wood. There are so many opportunities to do whatever you're focused on. I think that just is kind of true for the day in the life of each of us, but it's particularly within the holiday framework. We are so inundated with commercials. I mean, there's already Christmas trees at stores before Halloween was even over. So it's really not only pushed upon us, but it's also impressed upon us that there are certain things that are associated with the holidays, namely drinking. So we get a false sense of security, so to speak, with what our limits are. It's the holidays, you know, we are always open to wearing more elastic pants around this time. We're more likely to reduce our inhibitions. There's so many things that that we have to be aware of during the holidays. So with the misnomer of everyone has friends and family close, some people are just kind of floating around waiting for the holidays to be over. Some people are just trying to start their sobriety journey. Some people just lost their wife. I mean, so none of these things change because it's the holiday season. And another aspect too that we really want to kind of address is there's a lot of pressure just in general regarding the holidays. So it's not just reindeers and candy canes. There's a lot of pressure to drink. There's a lot of pressure to go out. Almost every social function or gathering is going to involve alcohol. So there's just a lot to look out for. It's a minefield out there, people. But we're going to talk about a couple of things that you can do to prepare. And once you have a great plan and you can stick with it, it'll help you navigate maybe a little easier.
A lot of pressure to have a good time around the holidays, and for someone who has been using addiction or substances in order to have a good time for a long time, that can be a pressure. But there's that other side too, where there's a lot of pressure to make the holidays great for our kids if we have them, or other loved ones. There's a lot of money stress as well, trying to keep up with all of the expectations. And I think that one of the things I know, I was working with somebody on just a thing a few years ago just about holiday depression, because you see this dynamic where people get depressed in the holidays. And oddly enough, one of the things that seems to be at the root of that depression is the expectation that this time of year is different and it should be special. And while that can be a good thing and it can lead to some fun times, if you really are like, oh, everything else should just go away for a while and all my pressures should be gone and I should just be enjoying myself without any efforts, that's not really how life ever works. And so there's not going to be an exception then. But yet people sort of treat it like they expect us to behave that way.
Yeah, there's
And
just
it's
a lot of expectations, and we have those impressed upon us throughout our entire life. So we have them too, that we want to buy the newest, the latest, techie gadgets for our kids, and 2-3 weeks later, they don't even care because something else just came out, but you're still paying for, your credit cards off until July, and it's just such a cycle. So there's a lot.
shut it down. If
Involved.
you're getting everything paid off by July, good job.
I get everything paid off by December because I'm a Scrooge. I don't give anybody any presents that I can't afford. Everybody gets boxes. You know how little kids rather play in boxes than actually the toy that came with it? So I just decided I'm giving everybody boxes. We're all going to start just playing in
We're
boxes.
gonna put that to the test. Yeah.
It's a theory anyway. It's a work in progress. So
I
one of the
remember.
go
I had
ahead.
I had somebody I worked with years ago who told me that when they went to, I think it was Thanksgiving dinner, could have been Christmas dinner, could have been some other thing. It was some family event where there was more liquor than there was food because the family culture, the family system was very based on that's how you celebrate. And they didn't want too much food because it would kill the effects of the ability to become intoxicated. And I've just always thought about that around this time, that pressure doesn't always just come from inside and our
Right.
own thinking. Oftentimes it's very ingrained in our social support systems as well.
Hmm. So there's different scenarios. Some people are alone on the holidays, or their family lives 2,000 miles away. There's some people that their family culture is drink and be merry. So eggnog is abundant. But we have to look at ourselves, and we're doing this show at a great time because the best way to persevere through the holidays, it doesn't look like what's represented on TV, is to have a plan, and not just a general plan. The number one plan that fails is I'm not going to drink. Okay, and that's kind of along the lines where I like to say I'm going to be a princess. So without some concrete action and some specific steps behind that plan, I haven't been a princess yet. So we have to extend that kind of way of thinking when we're really concerned about our behavior and what are our expectations for the holidays, what are our goals, what's our support system. Then start figuring these things out now before the season strikes and you are ill prepared. And there's a lot, like you mentioned, family culture plays a very critical and instrumental part in this. So a lot of families, or even your best friends, they might not be aware of what you're trying to do. So they're like, come on, have one more drink, have one more drink. And a lot of people I know bar hop. I live in wine country. I coach people in the wine industry and trying to navigate their way to maintain their sobriety when their whole world is wine.
Yeah.
So if we can do it here in wine country, I'm sure we can do it in other places as well.
That's a good tagline. I think that's, it's a weird balancing act. I always talk to people about knowing your triggers, and that's a word we use a lot of times when it comes to addiction, is know which things are going to trigger you. Is there that family party that I go to that I know is going to trigger me? And then there's, on the other hand, where I think part of making a plan is also not obsessing over that. So knowing what the triggers are, but then not just going, and I'm not going to drink, and I'm not going to drink, and I'm not going to drink, and I'm not going to drink. Because then I'm just thinking about drinking.
Exactly. That's the same approach as I'm not going to think about something. So what's going to happen? That's all you're going to think about. So that doesn't work. And I think people are more aware of what triggers means. And some of our semantics, it's just common parlance now. We all throw out these psychology words, and We think we know what we're talking about, but I think a lot of people do know what triggers are. And one of the most common ones is like the acronym HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. But what I'm interested in is catching things way before that time, because it's a buildup of very different things that might not look connected, but it's a pattern. So if you can catch something, a month before Thanksgiving, for example, then you really can see where you're at and where you need a little more support, or maybe you need to have a plan. One of the most common things people don't think of is driving themselves. That's a specific thing that they can do. It doesn't hurt anyone's feelings, and you'll be able to get home safely, or take a taxi. Don't count on someone else, because then they're going to want to stay for hours, and then you're going to continue to drink as well, and then now you're two people that are intoxicated driving. So not a good plan.
To get yourself out of the situation,
right,
when it becomes that way. It's more, you're kind of really talking about being more proactive than just
and that's
trigger and then fighting with it.
exactly, because sobriety is, I'm just here to tell people that are interested in it, it's not just the action of not doing something. You have to replace not doing something, it's a very involved process, addiction. It's a 24/7 environment. So once you remove all of that, you have all this time. So around the holidays, by having a plan, having specific friends to get together with, having a sober party, having a lot of people I know, like on Christmas, it's just a tradition. I go out for Chinese food, and that's because I'm Jewish. But it's something that is completely non-related to alcohol. So that is something that I've created my own tradition around the holidays. And that's
really a
that's
healthy thing. Just in general, a healthy thing to create traditions in our own lives. And it's one of those things that when we are getting into addiction, we lose those healthy traditions because they get swallowed up.
Mm-hmm. So you can touch base with people that you think you might have a good idea of. Maybe they're interested in not drinking as much this year, or cutting back completely. So you want to know who you're going to be able to connect with over the holidays, or limiting yourself to certain friends, or limiting yourself to certain family. Coming up with different ways to include your own traditions. And for me, my tradition is I don't drink during the holidays. And it's something that not only I don't feel I'm missing anything. I'm getting so much more. I can actually remember what happened.
Isn't that, that's a big part of it, is that redefinition too. I was thinking about what you're saying about the whole idea of the cognitive behavioral approach.
Mm-hmm.
When you're working on your own thoughts and your own interpretations of things, every trigger, and this is something I believe very strongly, every trigger really deep down is an internal trigger. Because even if I go to that party that everyone's drinking at, certainly I might usually focus on the party, but what I'm not picking up on is, what am I doing with that information? Yeah, everybody's drinking. What does that mean to me? And if there's a part of me that says I'm missing out because everyone else is drinking, that's an internal process. And I can't control everyone else's behavior.
Right.
I can choose whether or not to be there, but I can also work on this and say, what am I thinking that I'm missing out on? Am I reminding myself of what it was really like when there was a problem?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. Sometimes when we're used to situations, we're not really analyzing and interpreting how those situations are affecting us, or what those situations mean to us. So for some people are just habitual. You go out. I know plenty of people that have dinner with their families over Thanksgiving, and then they all meet up at the bar. And that's pretty common. Getting away from the family and getting into a bar. So what are some other things that you enjoy that you can attribute to happiness that goes along with what you're trying to accomplish overall? I have clients. I don't believe in abstinence is the only way. Some people can moderate. Some people are interested in not drinking for a certain amount of time. So this could be that time. People have they call it their detox period, or they talk about, they work it through way before it happens, what they're going to do in certain situations. And that's really been coming up quite a bit, actually, in with the clients that I talk to, because they're all in, like 90% of them are in the wine industry. And everybody thinks everybody's an alcoholic, but no one wants anyone to know that they think they might be one too, which cracks me up.
Do you find a lot when you talk about that, basically that harm reduction approach as well? I think that's another good thing to talk about, is that not everybody has the same goals over the holidays. And that's especially important probably for loved ones or people who are providing a supportive role. If you are being in a supportive role for a friend or family member and you don't know what their goals are, it might be good to offer to them to have that conversation and say, hey, what are your goals? Because I want to support you. I don't want to jump down your throat if you're doing something that's actually in line with your goals. On the other hand, I don't want to set you up for failure either.
That's a really great point. I'm glad you brought that up. So there are people that try harm reduction and it doesn't work, but this is like I said, it's a very individualized journey. It's your journey. So you're gonna navigate and get sidetracked and forget where you're going and get back to it. And what works for one might not work for the other. So having those conversations with people that are in your support system is really critical for you as you redefine yourself and what your goals are when it comes to drinking or smoking weed or whatever your goals are. So, and the other important thing too, as the pendulum swings in its extreme directions, is if you are really interested in abstinence and only abstinence, what would it look like to you if you did have a slip and have a drink at a party? What is, so it's
What's your plan for that? Right.
Exactly.
I often worry when I hear people sometimes who'd say, oh, I don't have any more relapses in me. That's kind of an addiction parlance for I'm trying to tell myself not to relapse again. But the fear that I have with that when I work with clients is they say, well, if I relapse again, I'll probably never make it back to sobriety. So they're either planning to completely throw their life away once they have a slip up, or possibly to kill themselves. So that's the other thing. I see people become suicidal when they believe that sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then with the holiday season, we hear, I don't know whether it's factual or not, but we do hear there are higher incidence rates of suicidal ideation or suicidal completion. So if you already have that in the mix, and then you're going to be dealing with alcohol, this is a cocktail that's more damaging and can cause a lot of disaster. So if you do relapse or you do slip, what is that going to look like to you in your program? How are you going to be able to recover? Are you going to just give up on yourself and just go out and or are you gonna, I always say, hey, rein it back in. So you did that. It's the same thing with the person, in my mind, is anyone who's ever been on a diet, don't tell me you've never not had a piece of chocolate cake on that diet. But you didn't just say the hell with it and I'm just going to eat as much chocolate cake as I can until I die of a diabetic coma and they have to pull the plug.
Or if you did, that wasn't the recommended response by your dietitian. I have a friend of mine. I don't think he invented this, but I started using this term after I worked with him. Another therapist that I know who talks about the difference between a relapse and a collapse. Basically, don't let your relapse turn into a full collapse.
Oh, I like that.
you still have goals to stop yourself from a relapse, but a relapse is I messed up and then I look in the mirror and I see someone who doesn't drink who drank, and now I got to deal with that. A collapse is I'm drinking again. Now what do
Right.
I? They're both, there's solutions for both, but to know that you can have a win even within a relapse, I think is very valuable.
Yeah. It's a slippery slope, my friend. Slippery slope. And I thank your friend because I'm stealing that and running like the wind with it. Relapse,
I think I
collapse.
stole it from somewhere else too.
Oh, nothing we talk about is ever original. No one's reinventing the wheel over here. I think, but I think that's what we're talking about. That's what you and I, with our shows, we're bringing spotlight and awareness on a real, just a very human issue. A lot of the things that we deal with, we don't realize so many others are dealing with the same concerns. So if we could feel comfortable in our support, I really think that those that have support as far as friends or family are really fortunate. So you can talk to people about this, because the one thing, it's interesting, I joke around it, but I'm pretty serious. I refer to myself as a recovery superhero. And my name is Shira, so I'm like half, I was born halfway there. But what I think we need to do is, as we learn, we teach. So, meaning for those of your clients that are in recovery, they are learning, maybe not at the same pace someone who's in their support system, because they're the ones being proactive, attending meetings or going to counseling or seeing a therapist, or they're really working on themselves, and that creates insight. So as the person who's interested in reducing their drinking or in complete abstinence, the person that loves them, their support system, they're still at the starting line. So through education, kind of helps them understand where you're at. So that's like what you were talking about, by helping someone, by asking them, what are your goals? How can I help you help yourself?
It's very good stuff. And I think along that line with the support system, one thing I'll say too is sometimes it can be very overwhelming when your friends have traditionally, like you said, gone to the bar or gotten together and smoked some joints or whatever it is that they do after hanging out with the family. And I'll say that, even people who still recreationally will engage with those things, if they know you've had a significant problem with it and you come to them and say, hey guys, can you just give me a heads up when you're not going to be doing that? Can we do an alternate activity, or can I join you the next day or another time? Because it's really jacked with my life. And if they're like, no, then I mean, I really have to question and say, I need better friends. I really do need a better support system, because that's not too much to ask. Even if you were just, even if you just hated football and you said, can I come over after the game? No, you watch the game or else. And so you need to believe in yourself enough to build a different support system, because there are people out there who if you came up to them and said, hey guys, we're having a good time, I scored some really good fill in the blank, whatever your drug of choice is, let's go use it. There are people out there who would look at you and go, no, we're having a good time, why would we do that? And they're not necessarily recovered addicts. They're just people who are like, we're having a good time, why would we botch it up by getting high? And having some people in your life that that will support you is really valuable that way.
Yeah, that reminds me. I always say, why do we feel the need to have to put happy on top of happy? Because we're so inundated by social pressures. Oh, you have a baby, have a drink. You're getting married, have a drink. You get it. Like, can't just the event be happy on its own? Why do we have to top that off with more happy?
A happy chaser, yeah.
Yeah, a happy
Title.
chaser.
Use that title for something.
Sounds like a great title of a book.
Yeah, it should be. We'll have to edit that part out. Nobody take it.
Lifetime Movie Network. A happy chaser.
Rom-com. Mario Lopez has already said he'll be in it. So thanks so much. We're about out of time, but hey, what's your website so people could look you up?
Okay, so I am the self-proclaimed wine country sober recovery coach. My website is pretty easy. It's Goldberg, BERG, sober coaching, goldbergsobercoaching.com. That just gives you a little more insight into what I'm about. And I think just real quick, when you're dealing with someone who's involved with such intimate and vulnerable aspects of your life in real time, so I think it's important that you kind of know where their what their background and philosophy is regarding if it's going to be a suitable fit for you. So I'm very transparent, very authentic, and those that are interested in me primarily have tried 12-step models and they didn't feel comfortable for whatever reason, and I just offer something different, and it might stick, it might not, but at least it proves that there are other options out there for you. So that can be important in your journey. And the Addiction Show, I was really creative with the domain. It's theaddictionshow.com. So you can find all of the past shows. And Dwight, I invite you to be a guest in the near future when I have time to record.
I'm excited to do it. We've been, one of the things that I think is really fun about this kind of model, and you just what you were just alluding to, is that whether it's podcasting or the YouTubing or both, like we're doing right now, it does allow people to see that transparency and say, oh, is this a treatment professional that I want to get involved with, and kind of get an idea of the philosophy right off the bat. Well, awesome. Those are also going to be available on the website at dwighthurst.com. If you go to dwighthurst.com/podcast, particularly while this is up, there'll be a link to it as well, and there'll be a link to this video while we're doing. Shira, thanks. It's been so much fun. Happy holidays. We'll let the closing music, take us out here, but so feel free to, dance along to it if you wanna, if you want. And we'll be in touch again soon.
All right, Dwight, as usual, you are just a pleasure. I really appreciated and enjoyed myself on your show.
Oh, thank you. You too.
Bye, everyone. Happy holidays.